Hey guys, what's up? It's Adam here, I Can't See the Guy. Before we get on with this review, I just want to point out a few things. If you hear a funny noise in the background, it's because my fan's going really hot here in the UK, so please excuse me for that. So I hope you can hear me very well. But it's a good camera, so you should be able to hear what I'm saying during this review. Today's review, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which came out in the year of 1991. The sequel to Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure, which came out in the year of 1989. And I've got both of those movies right here in the Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Collection Blu-ray version. Now this is a good set. Like I say, it contains the first two movies on Blu-ray. The third disc has many special features and it's a really good watch. Like I say, in the third disc you've got all these audio commentaries, you've got all these special makeup effects and all these interviews with Alex Winter, Keanu Reeves and many other actors who starred in the first two movies. Now, right off the bat, I will say this: Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, I really love it. In fact, I like it more than the first movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Many people are going to disagree with me on that, saying that the Excellent Adventure, the first movie, is the better one. Well, you see, I suppose one of the reasons why I like the second one so much is because it was the first Bill and Ted movie that I saw. Like I said, when I was about 6 or 7 years of age, my friend had all these VHS videotapes, and one of them was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And the front cover really stood out. I mean, just look at the cover of it. Bill and Ted squash up against the screen, the Grim Reaper smirking in the background, played by William Sandler. So the cover always stood out, and when I watched the movie I really loved it. You know what I mean? It's I had no idea at the time it was a sequel to the 1989 Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure. I didn't know that at the time. And to cut a long story short, I bought the first movie on VHS, Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure, at a car boot sale. I watched the movie and I really enjoyed it. Now, what's fantastic about the first movie is the fact that the plot of it, I mean, you really would not have got away with making a movie like that any year. If you was going to get away with it, it would have been made in the 80s, 1989. Just think about it. Cut long story short, the script's about two teenagers. They've got this dream about being a band one day called Wild Stallions. I want it to be a big thing. They're at risk of being separated because the father wants to send one of them to a school in Alaska, a military school, because they're both failing history. And then the history teacher tells them that they've got to pass their history report, otherwise they're both flunking, and they're going to be separated basically. Little do they know, in the future their music's going to be a big deal. It's going to bring peace and harmony to the world. So these future guys sends back a guy named Rufus in a phone booth to help them pass their history report by letting them collect some historical figures to make them talk in their school report at the end, and they get an A+ so they can stay together. And that's the plot of the first movie. Now, if I would have explained all that in today's generation to make a movie, that's a studio, you'd never in a million years get away with it. I think to myself, is this guy smoking something? Is he on crack? A phone booth, going back through time, collecting historical figures so these guys can pass a history test. What the fuck? But they made it in 1989 and it worked and it became successful. So successful enough that in 1991 they wanted to do a sequel. And indeed they did. But by this time, Bill and Ted was becoming very popular. They was making video games, cartoons. I remember the Bill and Ted cartoon. But the second movie, despite me loving it, a lot of people didn't. There was a lot of fans that were disappointed, and although it had a higher budget than the first movie, it wasn't as successful as the first movie, which is a shame. With that being said, it still has its love, it still has its fan base, and to this day, it's really still a good watch. I just got done watching it moments ago, and it was like going back in time, being a little kid again. So, how can there be a sequel? What are Bill and Ted going to do? Well, the film opens up with Bill and Ted practicing in their band with their two new girlfriends, Elizabeth and Joanna, who they're planning on proposing to. They are auditioning for the Battle of the Bands, you know, so to make their band famous, basically. But they still suck. Little do they know, Rufus has been sent back in time to try and warn them about the fact that they've still got to make their band successful, so he does everything he can to help them, so he gets them in an audition. But while all this is happening in the future, his old teacher, Anonymous, played by Josh Ackland, wants to put an end to Bill and Ted's music. And so he invents these two evil robot versions of Bill and Ted. Now, I remember seeing that scene for the first time when them two Bill and Ted evil robots were first revealed. And I remember being freaked out. I mean, there were so many scenes in this movie that freaked me out, because this movie is a little darker than the first movie, where it's Bill and Ted going to hell, facing the Easter Bunny, facing the granny who has this desire to kiss Bill. You know what I mean? There were so many scenes in this movie that were like, that's freaky. You know what I mean? So there was like a dark nature to them. I mean, Bill and Ted are literally pulling their mouths to shreds over their skulls to reveal their robot faces, and then pulling it all back together again. And the way it was done, the special effects were really great. But I remember as a kid being freaked out by that scene. But again, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, you can tell they're having a good time, and once again playing these characters again. They work really well together. It was like lightning in a bottle. They've both got this charm to them, and just like in the first movie, nothing gets them down. You know, they're very optimistic teenagers, still using all their own catchphrases like, dude, this is most not heinous. You know, excuse me, dude, your shoes are untied. Melvin, you know. They've got their own catchphrases and their own choice of one-liners yet again, which was really cool. But back to the plot. After Bill and Ted propose to their girlfriends, the evil robot of themselves arrive in the phone booth to the Circle K, try and track Bill and Ted down. And eventually they do, and they prank call Bill and Ted, informing them that their girlfriends have now left them. And they have one intention to the mind to take them out into the desert and kill them. You know, and they succeed. They turn up at their apartment, trying to be their friends, and they lure them into the desert, where eventually they push them off the cliff. Catch you later, Bill and Ted! You know, and Bill and Ted wake up, and even when they're dead, they're still in their typical silly selves. I mean, Ted, we're dead, dude. No way. Yes way. Look. Now what? You know, and that's when they encounter William Sanders' character, the Grim Reaper, who's a new main character into this series. And I think he did a great job playing the Grim Reaper. You know, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this. Didn't he play in Die Hard 2? William Sandler? I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure he was in Die Hard 2. Don't send me hate mail or anything like that if I'm wrong, but the name just rings a bell, and I think I remember it coming up in the credits of Die Hard 2, but I could be wrong about that, so don't be mad, you know. When they get away from the Grim Reaper, they try and find ways for them to go back to their normal selves. They're trying to warn the girlfriends that they're in trouble, but when they go back to the apartment, the evil robots are making out with the girlfriends, they're abusing them, and the girlfriends leave them. And then they even go to the police station to inform the cops of what's going on, but of course since they're dead they can't tell, they can't see them or anything. And that's when the hilarious scene happens where Ted controls his father and Bill controls the sergeant. My son Ted, Theodore Logan, and his friend Billings Person Esquire have been murdered and replaced by evil robots from the future. And they're acting all funky and acting all these weirdness in front of all these other cops, thinking that there's some sort of retards or something. But that was an hilarious scene. So the comedy in this movie, in my opinion, worked, just like in the first movie. Again, it wasn't an annoying comedy, at least it would be to some, but not to me. It was like very bizarre comedy that I think even worked for Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. There's a scene, you know, where the best part of the film is where they go to heaven and hell, you know, to try and seek help and try and come into life again. I mean, I remember the hell scene. I'd have to say that was my favourite scene in the whole movie, but again, freaked out at the fact that they saw the devil. And then they go to the military school where Colonos is there, who's going to be Ted's military leader. You know, getting to do push-ups. They escape him. Bill goes into his world where he confronts his dead grandma, who wants to kiss him, and Keanu Reeves goes into his world, his domain, where he's confronted by the Easter Bunny, hunted by the past where he stole his little brother's Easter egg basket. And again, it was a very scary, freaky scene, particularly the Easter Bunny. You know, you stole Deacon's Easter basket, you know, and the Easter Bunny was really freaky. Same with the grandma, you know, and little people do know, if you look up in the credits, or if you look on Wikipedia, Alex Winter played the granny also, so it was all costume, prosthetic makeup and all that kind of shit. Excuse me, I've got hay fever, bear with me. But they managed to get away, and they realised the only way they can get anywhere is by playing the Grim Reaper. So the Grim Reaper, this is where it gets more silly again. When they meet up the Grim Reaper, they're playing all sorts of games. They challenge him to contest games like Battleship and Twister and other games, the murder mystery game, in order to defeat him in games, you know, just so they can get the opportunity to go to heaven, you know, to speak to God. And it was hilarious. I mean, that had been the most hilarious part, where Bill is playing Twister with the Grim Reaper, and they beat him, and the Grim Reaper realises that they're outsmarted him, he can't defeat them, despite putting the game off, and he agrees to help them in the end. They go to heaven, more comedy, you know, you see all sorts of people like Einstein, you see people like Isaac Newton, and all those other people in heaven. God informs Bill and Ted that they need to see stations so they can make good robot, or see, you know, themselves, good robot Bill and Ted, to try and stop the evil Bill and Ted robot versions. I mean, indeed they do. You know, and they go back to Earth, and that's where they go like... Time's ticking because the Battle of the Bands is happening. And while all this is happening, the evil Bill and Ted are causing mayhem, they're trashing the apartment, they're kidnapping the girlfriends. And Bill and Ted, in the meantime, are like making these good robot cells from station, you know, in time for the Battle of the Bands to defeat the robots. And indeed they do, because at the end of the movie they have a good ending, you know, where the evil robots get destroyed, they rescue the girlfriends, and Anonymous gets arrested when he tries to attempt to shoot them, because he changes all the continentals on the cameras, so the whole world's watching them. And in a way he was doing them a favour, because, you know, although he got arrested, Bill and Ted had the opportunity now to play in front of the whole world, with the whole world watching them, and if that wouldn't have happened, then they probably wouldn't have got away with it. So really, he saved their asses, basically. And Bill and Ted play one last time, and the credits roll, making it clear that they won the Battle of the Bands. And Bill and Ted are there famous, and that's the end of the movie. So, I know I rambled on a bit, going on, giving spoilers, but trust me, it's much more funner to watch it than to listen to me explaining what this movie's all about. But, like I say, I've seen the movie that many times I could act in it, you know, seen it countless times. And like I say, I like Bogus Journey more than Excellent Adventure. You know, there's nothing wrong with Excellent Adventure, I love that movie. But like I say, Bogus Journey was the first one that I saw. And what I like about Bogus Journey was the creativity of it, the special effects, again, it was made in 1991, it didn't come out in the 80s, it came out in the early 90s, like 1991. And the special effects and everything, you can tell it's like a 1990s film. Just look at the cover again, with the colour and the artwork and all that. So, but it worked. Everything worked in this movie. The comedy, the teamwork between all the three actors. You know, William Sadler, Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter. They all worked together as a trio, really, really well. You know, it was nice to see George Carlin come back as Rufus, from the first movie. Sadly, he's passed away now, and he never appeared in the third movie. Although I think he did, but I've never seen the third movie, you know, and I don't intend to see the third movie because it's a horrendous piece of shit. And I know that just by watching the trailer, you know, everything was wrong about it the second the trailer played. But anyway, everyone, I'm going to end this review right now. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, it's a must-watch. You know, if you like your 90s comedies and you're a big fan of Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves is a great actor. Like I say, he's been in The Matrix, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Speed. He's been in loads of other great movies. But like I say, everyone worked well together, everything worked, the comedy, the plot, and it was a great story told. And that's all I'm going to say, everyone. Thanks for watching this, everybody. Please like, rate, and comment if you have any questions, and leave more comments below. Thanks for watching this, everyone. If you haven't seen my review on Excellent Adventures, check that out also. Thanks, everyone. Peace out. Have a nice day.